All right, so today we wanted to cover auditing. And what we mean by that is kind of looking through your system and your data to identify potential issues or holes in your data. The end result or the end goal for us as a for Oil Country OS is to provide you guys not only with accurate inventory management, but accurate and consistent reports. So that's kind of our focus for this one, is looking at your data to ensure that you can get those accurate and predictable reports at the end of the month. So some of the topics we're going to be covering today are the part numbers, your master parts list, your locations, your companies, and jobs and orders. So the most obvious kind of problems that we can identify, and possibly some of the most devastating, if they do happen, are inconsistencies in your master part list. If you use the system, you know that the master part list are essentially the templates or cookie cutters for your inventory. So I'm going to do a search for the master parts list in this in my webinar database, and we're going to look at tubing. So here I can see I don't have very many tubing parts, but we see that the data here is complete and consistent across the board. We see that the part number, the description, the pipe size, and all the pipe properties here match up to that of the part number. We can also see that I don't have any duplicates. Duplicates are what's going to cause a majority of the issues in your system, and can really throw your reports off. So it behooves you to audit, or have someone to audit, usually your super admin, audit your master parts list. And we also recommend that you limit which ones of your users can create master parts. So I'm going to show you an example of a duplicate master part and why that's a problem here. So everybody has their own preferences when it comes to naming something, right? The part number is essentially the name, but it also is the unique identifier for this inventory in the system. So if one person wants to name it, wants to type the name one way, and another person creates a part in the same part in a slightly different naming convention, you'll have inventory that is essentially the same part number split into two different parts, and obviously that's going to cause a lot of issues in your reports. You're going to either grow pipe or miss out on your reporting. So let's go ahead and find a duplicate and show you. All right, let me just mute them. Okay. So here we're going to find a duplicate. Here we go. Let's filter down a little bit further. That's 9.625. Where are we at? Here we go. And J55. All right. So here we see two part numbers. 9.625 40 weight J55 LTC. The only difference between these two part numbers is the pound sign, right? They're essentially the exact same thing. And you can see some have differing information and maybe even some incorrect information populated into these part numbers, but this is the issue, right? If we open this up, we could have inventory under this pipe number and that exact same inventory under this pipe number. So if somebody searches for 9.625 40 weight J55 LTC but does not insert that pound sign, they could say, oh, we didn't input this this particular transaction, and then they'll go ahead and input it under a different part number, and you'll get duplicate inventories, and that's going to throw off not only your current inventory reports but your in and outs, and you're not going to be able to get consistent data. So that's one of the things we wanted to highlight, is that it's really smart for you guys to go through and check your master parts list for duplicates or missing information. For example, in this part, we don't have a description, and the pipes and the weight is not what is listed under the part number. So there's several ways you can correct this. For this example, I'm simply going to do I'm going to open up this part number by double-clicking, and I'm just going to do a correction, right? I can edit the weight to match what's in the part number and save that. Or what I can do is in the Part Explorer, right-click on it and click on Merge Part Numbers. This is going to allow us to input the name of the one we want to keep, essentially. So let's say these two were created, are the same part number. They were created on accident or erroneously, and we want to go ahead and merge them. What merge is going to do is it's going to take all the inventory that's on the part being merged and move it over to the part we're going to keep. So instead of having to go through and find every job for this erroneous part number and changing the part number manually, we can just merge it and it's going to do all that work for us. So I'm going to click OK. And it's going to ask you to confirm it. Now, this is permanent. This is a permanent change that we're going to make, but it's not going to lose the history. And we'll go over the history of these audit actions later on. Okay, then you get a confirmation. And we can see now that we only have this, this one part number. So already this looks cleaner, right? We have 3 part numbers with the correct pipe sizes and weights and grades, as opposed to 4 with 3 good ones and 1 not so good one. That's a basic example. Let's go look at some part numbers with inventory on them. All right, so I'm going to search for, I'm going to clear out my filter, search for 2.875. All right, here's another good example of how the system is going to handle. Yes, Jonathan asked, with those 2 parts having different weights, which one would we keep? It will ask you to enter in the destination part, right? And it's going to keep the values of whatever part you assign as the destination. And I'll show you another one because we're about to do another merge. This is another thing that you kind of have to watch out for. The system, if you try to create a duplicate part number where the system senses there is no difference in the part number names, it's going to tack on a -001 or -002. And this is a dead giveaway that you have issues in your data. If you open up your part number and see a -001, you know, okay, this was a clone or a duplicate of something else. And we see that these part numbers are essentially identical except for the part number and description. They're the same inventory, right? They're 2.875, 6.5 weight. Well, this one's 6.6 weight, and N80 EUE. If we open these up, we can see that we have 2 jobs under this -001 part, and I think 1 job under the original. Oh, that opened twice. There we go. So we have inventory under both of these parts. This is what you have to watch out for, right? Because this is essentially the same pipe as these 2, but it's stored differently. So if you were to run a rack audit report for 2.875 size pipe, you're going to see, you know, 2 different part numbers. So let's go ahead and merge the -001 part into the original part. What we can do is select the part we want to keep, hit Control-C, which you can't see on my keyboard, unfortunately, but that's just going to copy the value. Then right-click on the one we want to get rid of and click Merge Part Numbers. And Jonathan, this is exactly where it's going to ask you which properties to keep, right? So we're going to enter in the destination part, the part number that is receiving the material. And I'm just going to paste that in. And again, it's going to give you a summary of what you're doing and ask for confirmation. Right, so now we only have one part number for that inventory. And if we go in here, we can see that those 3 jobs are now listed in here. So it transferred those 3 jobs over to the correct part number. And we can even open up the jobs here and look at it on a job basis. Go into the specs. So here's another issue. This, if we take a look at the job right beside the part number, we see that the weight on the part number is 6.6, right? But the weight on the job is 6.5. That could be due to someone coming into the job and changing it, or this could be from the previous part number. So that's another thing that you need to keep track of is, not only duplicate parts, but differing values from, your master parts to your jobs. And we have a pretty cool way to deal with that. If we look at the master part specs tab, you see this apply specs to all jobs. And I'll demonstrate that it'll change, it'll apply anything in this tab to the jobs of that master part. So let's go ahead and assign some more specifications to this. We're going to assign it an inspection color and a connection. All right, and then we're going to save and apply specs to all jobs. Okay, now if we open up these jobs, we're going to see that it's no longer 6.5, it's 6.6, and it inherited all these properties from the part number. So that's a quick way to kind of make sure there's no discrepancies, And this doesn't have to be done on a daily basis, obviously, but whenever you're doing your kind of system cleanup, you can go through your part numbers, and if you notice any discrepancies, you can just apply the specs to all jobs for that part number. All right, so that's duplicates. Another big issue is missing information. As we can see, this is a good example. These part numbers down here have pretty much every bit of information that we could want populated for them, as opposed to these ones up here. They don't even have a category or a weight or a grade or a coupling. Now, some master parts are not going to have all of these properties, right? But every master part number should have a category. This is going to make it exceedingly difficult to run reports or searches for inventory belonging to these master parts because they don't have a category. You're not going to be able to filter for them properly. So a category of nothing is a dead giveaway that there's going to be some issues in your data. And again, that's going to reflect on your reports, right? So the cleaner the data you have, or the more consistent data, the more consistent and cleaner reports you're going to have. So for issues like these, you can just open it up and go ahead and assign it a category. I believe this is tubing. No, this is casing, right? No, tubing, yeah. And just click Save. We don't have to do the apply specs to all jobs, since the way the system gets the information for category is done automatically for you. So if we refresh that, we have a, oh, this is pipe, I'm sorry. You can see that the category was updated. So that's also a great thing to do with your master part numbers, is go ahead and categorize them. And we can see that this database has some terrible looking data. We have categories without, part numbers without categories. We have duplicates. A lot of these don't have sizes. So this is something you want to kind of stay on top of if at all possible. Any questions so far? No, sorry, Jonathan. Jonathan asked if if applying all the specs to a job will apply to the descriptions, and no. That is an important aspect of keeping track of the history. You can change the description on jobs however you see fit. And updating the master part is not going to change that description. that's kind of how you keep track of the history of it as well. So let's go back and look at some of those jobs. There we go. So this is one of the part numbers that we merged before and updated. And the description is still going to be whatever we set it. So if I open this job and change the description, save that. All right, so that's my description. Even if I change the specs on this, let's say we're going to change it, the grade for whatever reason, it's not going to change the description, right? Even if you go in here and change the description of this part number and do the same, it's not going to change. This changing the description on the master part is only going to apply to new inventory that you bring in under that master part, right? You can always, should you need to, just go ahead and copy that, open the job, and paste the description. But it's important that we don't change that by the master part, since it does apply on a job-to-job basis. Yeah, okay. All right. So basically the more information you have on your jobs, the better. And here's another great example. Look at this master part. 2.875J something 001. That's a terrible master part. You know, it gives us no information. It looks like someone just kind of half entered it in and forgot to update it. So in this case, we would want to, you know, merge the master part into something else. And, you know, you can just double click on that master part and see if there's any inventory. So here this tells me this master part has absolutely no inventory in our system, and I don't know where to merge it, right? It does. I have no way of knowing what this is. The specs are pretty incomplete. So in cases like this where you have, you know, obviously trash master part, incomplete information, and no inventory under that, we can just do a merge. So I'm just going to merge it into one of these other 2.875s. I don't really care which one it is, since this has no inventory. Again, you want to be very, very careful with this and make sure that you're not going to be, you know, moving inventory from one part to a different one incorrectly. So I'm going to right-click and merge, and just put it into one of these other 2.875 master parts, and confirm it, since this this erroneous one, this incomplete one, has no inventory on it. It's not going to affect it. Essentially, it deletes it. Good question. We don't allow users generally to delete master parts, simply because deleting them gets rid of the history. We don't want to get rid of the history, right? We just don't want to see it. We don't want to see that master part in our list, and we don't want to be able to search for it. It's not relevant to us. But should there be any inventory with history on that master part, we want to be able to track that, right? So it's not going to show up in your active inventory or searchable parts, but we can always go back and track it down. And correct, it won't let you delete it if it has a job. It'll let you merge it. So we recommend just merging, right? If you merge it with no inventory, then it's just gone. But unlike deleting, you still have the history behind it. So that's kind of our policy on that one. All right, so and it's pretty much, yeah, it's pretty much the same effect as deleting it. You know, you're not going to see it, but it's there in the system. It's got some traceability. All right. In some cases, we may want to rename parts. You can change the name of any part, and it'll apply to all your jobs, right? To do that, you right-click on it, and where is it? You open up the part, and you can just right-click anywhere on the screen and rename it. So let's say I do want to show the pound sign, right? Let's say that's how I want to look at it. we can easily rename that. Just click OK, and we can see that it applied to all part numbers. So that's another good feature. If somebody forgot to put in the pound sign, or you don't want to see it with the pound sign, you don't have to create a new part number and transfer everything in and merge it. No, you can just rename it if it's just one part number. So that's kind of things to look out for with your master parts, right? To recap, duplicates and incomplete data is what you're looking for to clean up. And again, this is more for your system admins and not your kind of Joes on the ground. You don't want to give them access to that because they'll make it worse. So unless anybody has any questions on the master part cleanup, we'll go ahead and move on to some of the other categories. Okie doke. So let's go look at our locations. With the locations, we're looking for essentially the same thing, right? We're looking for duplications and incomplete data. When it comes to locations, the more information you fill in, the more work the system is going to do for you. Whenever you select to ship something to or from a location, it's going to try to fill in all this information on that shipping, receiving, or purchase order for you. Obviously, if you don't have anything in the fields, much like this Oklahoma 1 back 40, it's not going to know what to populate, and your printables are going to, your bills of lading or your purchase orders and sales orders are just going to look incomplete and trashy. So from time to time, it's a good idea to come in here and make sure that all your locations have as much information as possible. Too much information is not really a thing when it comes to these types of situations. So immediately here in my Locations Manager, in my Locations Explorer, I can see that a lot of these are missing information. We have 2 missing AFEs here. Your accounting department's not going to like that. We have 2 with absolutely no contact information. So we can see that those are immediately identifiable problems. And much like anything in the system, to correct it, all we have to do is double-click on it. This opens up your location view. And we can see that this is pretty complete. It has the AFE, the operator, the yard. This looks pretty good. But if we go to the shipping, all of this is blank. So it behooves you to make sure that all of your locations have as much information as possible. You may not have a specific contact number, point of contact, but you may have a company email address or a location for this yard. So I'm just going to put in whatever. Doesn't necessarily matter. You guys get the gist of this one. And we can save it and click refresh, and we can see that our information is now a little bit more complete. So we recommend, put as much information here as possible. Especially when it comes to wells, AFE is very important. So, you don't want to have a well without an AFE if you can avoid it at all. We can also see that there's a duplicate. We see that Oklahoma back 40 and Oklahoma back 40 are the same location essentially. Someone just made a typo. They omitted a K, and then because someone didn't see this location in the drop-down list, they created a new one, and this one is correct. It has all the information that we want for it. Again, we can just merge these, right? Much like with the part numbers, we can right-click and merge. So I'm going to hit Control-C on the one I want to keep, right? You always copy the one you want to keep. And then right-click on the one you want to get rid of and click Merge. And you can actually select from the drop-down, or you can just paste it in there. Click Merge now. And it's actually going to ask you to do a little bit of math. This is kind of a security check just to make sure that you're not doing this by accident. Because that would be bad if you did it by accident or the system let you do it by accident. Now we see that we only have one Oklahoma 1 back 40. Again, this is going to move any inventory that the incorrect yard had into the new yard. The information on, are you talking about the information here in the shipping tab or in the name, Jonathan? This, the city and state, right, it has a, it only lets you select from here, right? You can't, it's not going to let you just enter in, you know, O or something. It's going to populate something. So this does have some sort of standardization for you, and same with the United States and everything like that. So it's going to be pretty standard across the board. Oh, I guess this one has OK. See, that's an issue right there. We have inconsistent data. Right? Good eye, Jonathan. So if we open this one up, in the shipping, we can correct that to Oklahoma, save it, and when we refresh, now we have consistent data. Right? So those are the types of things you're looking for, right? OK and Oklahoma may show up differently in your reports. So this is a perfect example of something that you're going to be looking for. All right. I don't think there's anything else to cover on the location manager. We're going to go into the companies, but this is much the same, right? We have missing information. That's not good. So anytime you're dealing with companies and select a customer or a receiver, it's going to auto-populate from your company list. So whenever you're creating a new company or have an existing company, it's a good idea to keep as much information in your system as possible. Also, a great benefit to the Customer Explorer, you can use this as a customer relations managing engine, right? You have all your customers' email address, you have all your customers' phone numbers. You have your marketing team might be able to use this for their campaigns and stuff. So this is a great little kind of database, a little personal database for your customers. Okay, Omar is saying, what happened for racks in the yard when the merge? Okay, right. So it's whenever you merge a location, it's going to move all the inventory from one yard to the other. The racks are not going to be created in your new yard, right? So it's not going to clone the racks over. It's just going to put that the inventory in the yard. If you have racks that exist in one yard and not in the other, then you can just do a relocate. And I can actually show you that. That's a good question. So let's go ahead and search for something. So let's say this happened to be in one of our yards that we merged away, right? It doesn't have a rack, or it's on the incorrect rack once it's been merged. If you click on the transfer button and select relocate, you can move it to a correct rack. Right, so let's say in Oklahoma 1001 yard, which we merged over, it was in a Z rack, but there's no Z racks in this new Oklahoma 1 yard. You can just relocate it. And we can type in a comment for it due to location merge audit, something like that. And it's going to place it on the correct rack for you. That's a good question, though. Yeah, it's not automatically going to create the racks from the old yard and put them into the yard you're merging into. You're going to have to do that yourself. So let's go back to companies. Right, so want to fill in as much information as possible. As with everything else in the system, double-click to bring it up, and here you can fill out your information. All right. So now let me show you some of the functionality that we have built in for your system admin. If you right-click on the Settings button and click on the Admin Console, it's going to take you to my favorite place in the system. This is where you can really dig in and do some really powerful stuff. You'll see over here in the Utilities section that you have Merge Companies and Merge Locations. If you want to do this kind of a little bit easier, instead of having to search through everything and right-click and all this other stuff, this is a very easy dialog that does most of the work for you, right? So I can select one company, select the company that I want to merge it to, and you can opt to delete the old company. And what's this going to do is it's going to take all the jobs that are listed under example company 2 and transfer them to example customer. It's not going to change anything else. It's not going to change the location. It's not going to change the specifications, the amounts. It's simply going to change the company. And then it's going to do that for all jobs for example company 2. And since I have this checked, it's going to delete example company 2. So I'm going to click Merge Now. Again, it's going to ask you to do some math. This is simply for security since a lot of these actions are irreversible. So you want to be really careful in who you give access to this. I recommend only one person, maybe 2 people have access to these type of things. Because again, you want to have consistency throughout the system. You don't want to have one person doing it one way and another person doing it another way. The companies have been merged. Please verify the results by querying on the new company through the Inventory Explorer. What that's telling me is go search for it, right? So we deleted example company 2. And we refresh. We don't see it anywhere. It's just example customer. And oftentimes this is going to be quicker than doing it through the Customer Explorer. Let's look at merge locations. It's exactly the same thing. You can select a yard to merge, select the new location, and click Merge Now. I'll reiterate what Omar asked, and no, it's not going to create the racks from Oklahoma 1 and put them into Oklahoma 2. It's only going to keep the racks in Oklahoma 2 yard. You will have to change the jobs over manually, and that's very easy. You can search for Oklahoma 2 and look at all the racks in the Pipe Explorer, and use the relocate transfer that I showed you earlier. Another good tool is the system maintenance. If you double click on that, it'll show you a list of pre-built maintenance routines for you. Pretty much all systems come with it. And you'll have a function and a description. So this is the name, the function is the name, and the description tells you what it's going to do. You have things like close empty jobs, right? So let's say you transferred all the joints off of one job and ship them off to a different location. If you run this function, it's going to close all those empty jobs, all those zero balance jobs, which are essentially trash. They're going to show in your inventory reports, but they have no values, right? So you're going to have zero footage, zero joint inventory on your reports. It's also going to keep track of the date that it was last run over here. So that's a good little history tool. Probably one of the more useful ones is delete pipe master parts without inventory. So let's say you have master parts that are categorized under pipe or drill pipe. I think casing is also considered pipe or tubing. But they don't have any inventory, right? You're not using them. If you don't use them, then you don't want to have them cluttering up your system, right? You don't want someone to accidentally assign inventory to that. So if we run this, it's going to delete all those that don't have inventory. And I'll show you on here, since it's pretty easy. You don't necessarily have to worry about getting rid of any of your inventory because, again, it's only going to do it for those with inventory. So let's look at category of pipe. You have all these master parts. Well, let's see which ones actually have inventory, right? I'm betting it's very few, if any. So I'm going to go ahead and run this subroutine, this maintenance routine, to delete all master parts considered pipe without inventory. So you select it over here and click Run, and it's going to warn you this is irreversible, right? So there is no going back once you press yes. So you need to be sure that you're ready to do this and that this is the correct path for you. All right. So once you see the done, we can come back into the master parts list and search. There you go. I took my system from how many hundred pipe categories, master parts, to 4. This is much cleaner, right? We're not using all those other ones. There's no inventory under them. This is all we're using. So that can be a quick way to clean up your system, especially if you have people, multiple people creating the same parts over and over again. And I'll show you where a part number is assigned, is considered pipe or not. If you go into stock categories in the admin console, we can see that we have the category name, the category ID, and the type. At the top it'll tell you categories with a type of 1 will be considered pipe. Anything with 2 is anything other than pipe. So we can see that pipe, tubing, casing, drill pipe, drill collars, drill pipe, heavyweight, Kelly pipe, line pipe, crossovers, those are all considered pipe. So if I run that subroutine that I just ran, the delete pipe master parts, it's going to find anything, any master parts under these categories, and if it doesn't have inventory, it's going to drop them. Any questions on that? And I'm not going to cover, every one of these routines. You have a description here, and if you need help, you can always, email us or call us, and we'll be happy to walk you through it. There's a plethora of different routines, and we have some that are not available to you should you need them. Another really useful one is the master part update job category. So it's going to change it's going to take all the jobs for a master part, and if you change the category, this will update all your jobs for you. So any questions on this one so far? And again, you really want to limit who has access to these, and I recommend running this, maybe once a couple months or once a quarter, something like that. All right. Oh, and one thing I forgot to mention on that the maintenance routines under the system maintenance. You can set a date for the maintenance routine, right? So if you want to delete master parts, it's only going to delete the ones created before this date. In this case, I just have it to today, but you can say, last year or 2 years before that. So you can kind of customize how the maintenance routine runs a little bit.